to describe Dr. Coley King. He's the director of the homeless services at the Venice Family Clinic. He has been there for 15 years. Obviously, you can tell from the movie how dedicated he is to the folks out living on the streets, and the work that you do is incredible. And I can personally vouch for the Venice Family Clinic because it's around the street from my house, and it's where I go to get my medical care for ever since Obamacare allowed me to finally do it.
There you go, yeah.
So, Megan Raney Aarons is part of the all-woman producing team on Unzipped, so give a hand for that. She's a scriptwriter and a director as well, and she's lived in Venice for 20 years with her husband and kids. And then, of course, to my left is Dr. Naomi Nightingale, which she's an incredible and she's the original Save Venice group, and she's been very, very active in the community for so long, and we were fortunate enough to meet back in 2018 when we did a History of Venice show with the Venice Heritage Museum here. So I just think that this movie is an incredible statement of fact, and also a statement of moral statement that I think is a key important thing. So obviously we care deeply about this, and I'm going to encourage everybody to make sure that you use the QR code and raise the roof and do what you can. And talk to people about this film. Tell people that they can see it on Amazon and other streaming services.
Yeah, Apple,
and
YouTube.
Encourage people to
everywhere.
watch it. and they may know somebody in the Academy that might vote for it. Let's all keep our fingers crossed and send the love out there for it to be nominated. So that would be wonderful. So I'm going to start with Colin first. So obviously we know that it's running for the Academy Award for the documentary feature category. I know it's really hard to get films made because I'm a filmmaker for many, many years, and I know all the hard work that goes into it. And this in particular is incredibly difficult because of the number of people that appear in the movie and tracking them down, getting their permission to be on camera, getting close with them and intimate with them. And so that's pretty incredible and really impressive to me. What made you want to work with homelessness and the homelessness and the subject of housing?
I mean, it's been a 5-year journey, and I will say the only reason we're here today is because of this incredible team and having this incredible community open up their hearts and stories to us. And I want to give just a quick shout. We have a couple other team members here with us tonight. So really the unsung heroes of doc filmmaking are the editors, because you're dealing with this huge volume of footage that you've got to weave and sift through. So our lead editor is here, Davide Fiore. And I loved being in this space because not only was it where we interviewed Christina von Hoffman from Venice Heritage Museum for the interview, but it was also, I feel like I could hear the soundtrack really well. It's a gorgeous score, and our composer, Leo Z, is here as well. So,
we took the Venice thing really seriously because they're both Italian.
Exactly. The original Venice. No, I mean, just quickly, this topic is so urgent, and I think that it's very much a local lens on a national issue. And Naomi, you made that analogy in the film of connecting what's happening in Venice all over the country and internationally. And I've talked about this with the team from the get-go. I think it's unconscionable that we live in such a wealthy country, and yet it's now an average of 5 people dying a day on the streets of Los Angeles. And I think that we know it's a huge, complex, overwhelming issue, but there are incredible frontline organizations doing the noble, good work every day, and this was a way to try to take the issue out of the abstract statistics and all of that sort of divisive rhetoric that we're constantly reading about, and centering really the lived experiences of a few families and hearing from a lot of different stakeholders in Venice from different points of view, but making sure you could hear out of all of that to help us re-engage in a very necessary discussion I think we need to have about housing in this country and internationally. So I think it was prompted by probably I have a young daughter, wondering what kind of community she was going to raise in, having nephews and nieces, and hopefully catalyzing some debate and discussion with this film about this really urgent issue.
Yeah, I mean, the reason we started the Venice Institute of Contemporary Art in the first place was because all of my artist friends were being forced out because of rents. We started it in 2011. So that was when you came to me and said, you know, we're doing this thing. Who might be good for us to interview? Would you like to do an interview? I was all in. I was very excited about it. So, Megan, next question for you. You're the finalist for the Anthem Awards in the Humanitarian Action and Services category. Can you tell us a little bit about your campaign, your affordable housing campaign, and did you originally set out to do an impact campaign, or did that sort of follow on from the process of making the movie?
That's a great question. So Colin and I are a brother and sister, and we were raised by a grassroots civil rights activist, academic mother. So she got the red pen out as we were growing up and was always like, how can you make this essay better? How can you think bigger? How can you take an issue and get involved? So she, I think, encouraged us in a way so that by the time we were storytellers and wanting to make films together, we realized, okay, we want to make films that make a difference in some way, shape, or form. We love story, we love entertainment, but how can we actually make it of worth, right? So I think with every project that we tackle, there's some underlying hope and desire for there to be an impact campaign, for it to have people watch a project and then walk away feeling like they want to do something about whatever the issue is. So did we come into this with the idea of an impact campaign? Yes. This is our 7th feature documentary, and I have to say, we've talked about making our films available from an educational standpoint. We've hoped for things like this. It's the first time with #Raise the Roof that we've really pulled it off, and I'm so impressed. Our impact campaign producer, who's part of our team at Rainy Pictures, who's not here tonight, Kiara, was a driving force of that. We were able to bring together organizations around the country and the world, frankly, who never before were in communication, to give this hub as a place where people can go and get involved in their local community. So it is that, you know, local lens on a national issue in action with #Raise the Roof. So that I'm still blown away that this happened, and I hope that it has long-standing, you know, tentacles in a good way.
Well, I think you find a receptive audience in Venice for activism naturally, and we're really stoked that you came to our town, that you live in our town, and that you did this. So the next question I'm going to talk to is Dr. Naomi Nightingale, who's next to me. We've known each other for a little while, and the First Baptist Church protests were, I was attending during the day when that footage was being taken, and I remember how important it was to all of us. And you know, I drive by it on my way here every time I come here, and I live around the corner from it. So just tell us a little bit about the development since the film got finished in terms of what's happening with the community center at First Baptist, if there are any. And also, how can we help at Venice Institute of Contemporary Art? What can we do to help you guys?
Well, since the film was made, I guess a lot has been happening in terms of us continuing to make it known that the First Baptist Church of Venice has to continue to be a church and has to continue to be vital and viable in the community. And the Santa Monica Community Corporation purchased the church, and you know, previously it was owned by the Penskes and that group. But and so we have been in discussions with them. They've been keeping us informed about their actions, and we've been dialoguing with them about the things that we would like to see at the church. They are intending to build low-income housing there, very low-income housing there, on the lots that are behind the church and across the street.
Yeah.
So we are looking forward to continuing to discuss with them what kind of housing, the specifications of the housing. We're very clear about not wanting 4-story housings on the corner of 7th and Westminster. And that they have done some community outreach to get input from community individuals about what they would like to see there in terms of what type of housing, senior housing, mixed housing, and so forth. And we just had a meeting with Tara Barascas, who is the executive director of Santa Monica Community Corps, about doing some more community outreach to stay in touch with and keep informed about what's going on in their development of plans for the church. If you pass by the church, you will see school buses. They're parked on the lot with a hoop in front. That is called a hoop bus, and the Community Corp has entered into an agreement with them to park their buses there. They are a sports organization. If you're familiar with the big basketball activities that happen on Venice Beach during the summer every year, the big competitions, they are part of that. They have athletic individuals, professional basketball players that are working with Hoop Bus, and they have proposed to us that they involve our children in the community in some of the activities that they're doing, using the church as a community services base for youth activities and other community activities. They have reached out to us to say, what is it that you would like to see at the church? And we've responded with wanting to see the church be a community services center for the Venice community, to continue to be the anchor for the African American community, the Oakwood community, because the church was always a refuge for the community and always a source of community interaction and growth and development. So we expect that it will continue to do that.
That's fantastic.
And can I just say, like, it was so inspiring for our team, because early on, I feel like, because you were gathering there every Sunday, and there was, as after the sale to the Penske's, and it looked rather bleak, I will say, at one point, in terms of the outcome. But you never gave up hope, and there was a core group that just slowly got bigger and bigger, and to have this outcome is so inspiring. I just feel like it's like an example, a concrete example in the midst of all the turmoil of the world today. Community activism at work, effective, and it shows results. And I'm so proud and happy that this is where it's evolving right now.
Well, you saw some of the other activists that's in the film, Laddie Williams, Jatan Valentine, speaking about the determination of what the church was going to be and the absolute commitment as to what it wasn't going to be. So I think even though it might have appeared bleak to outsiders looking in, it was never a question with us about what our fight for the church to continue to be a church and for it to achieve its historic and cultural designation. The fight is not over. Because we understand that change is always in the works, but the commitment from Original Save Venice and other people who came out to the church on Sundays, who joined us in those events there, where there were hundreds of people out there, knowing that the church is the meeting place, the resource place, the refuge place, the place where people come when they know that they need to make a statement, and have people join them in that statement to achieve the outcome and the goal that we're looking for. It will still be that place.
Fantastic. Speaking of outreach programs and what the community can do for each other, Dr. Coley King, your medicine outreach program that you do with St. Joseph's and Venice Family Clinic is like frontline services, very, very important. How did you get involved in street medicine, and do you think that the need is increasing around Los Angeles? I do believe that since Karen Bass has been elected, more things have been done. We've seen there's apparently 17,000 folks have been found temporary or permanent housing since she came into office, which I think is a good start, and it's somewhat optimistic. But you know more about what's happening on the streets than anyone, I would assume. So talk to us a little bit about that.
So I think I got enlisted into this. So I showed up at Venice Clinic, I think about 18 years ago. I grew up in a really small town, and I said I'd never I love the anonymity of a really big city to kind of disappear. We moved to Venice Beach, and I told my wife, I'll never go work there. It's too close to the house. It's very weird. And she was looking for a job, and she said, oh, they don't need me, but they need family practice. So she gives me my resume, gives me a shove, like I walk around the corner. And turned my resume in and ran away. But they called me the next day, and it's turned out to be, becoming part of community again has become, of course, what I needed, what I wanted. I just didn't know it. So Liz, you got to see Liz in the movie here, our great CEO for so many years, and she retired a little more than a year ago. I was gonna text her in there and say, hey Liz, you're doing really good in the movie. So I always wanted to do family medicine and just see good patients where they're at. I didn't really have, I wasn't aware of sort of homeless healthcare as a specific entity, but I think it was after a board meeting, Liz walked around the corner and said, oh, we wrote your name into a grant, tonight, so we'll let you know all about it in the morning. Like, oh, thanks, Liz. Okay. So she knew I was easygoing enough to jump into something. So, and Venice Clinic has been around 50 plus years, and we've done homeless health care from the beginning. It just wasn't in name and build so much, and it built up so much. But we've always been there for those patients, and there's been outreach. But we did slowly build a homeless health care street medicine program over the last 17 or 18 years, to where we get to go out and have the privilege of meeting these people where they're at. They may be just a few blocks from the clinic, but there are really big barriers for them to come into the building and lose their stuff. They don't feel right about coming in. They might not feel welcome in the building. Maybe they had a negative instance with the medical industry. I don't know how that would have happened, but some sort of negative barrier in their mind, but once we get to know them where they're at, and sometimes we have to do extensive medical care where they're at and welcome them into a complete medical home, hopefully then they feel like they can use our clinic. But one of the things is to stay completely in our lane is we want to do really good medical care and provide this medical home and cheerlead them into housing. We want to be part of the things that make them housing ready, whether it's it's addiction services or mental health support. And then, of course, we like to step out of our lane. We do healthcare, but we have a lot to say about housing, and we need a lot more of it. And the Mayor Bass, she's doing a really solid job. There are holes in everything. There's holes in the whole plan. There are so many years of holes built into the system. So I can't criticize her because she's moving very, very, very quickly. But if you inspect it with a microscope, or sometimes you don't need that, there are problems in this plan as it flows. Yeah. But at least she's moving quickly. Yeah. And these patients still need medical care, so we're trying to get to the motels and see them and try to do the best we can for them.
Yeah, I'm going to ask 2 more follow-up questions because I know everybody's enjoyed the movie and stuff, but we want to get you guys comfortable and safe soon. But if you have any questions afterwards, feel free to talk to any of us about it. But the first question is going to be, Well, to me, art and artists are the most important part of this community. The creativity that exists here is unmatched, in my opinion, and I think that that's what makes Venice so special. So, so what do you think about, how did it feel? It's going to combine this into the other question, but how did it feel to get to know the creative part of Venice? Because obviously you've been a part of the creative part of Venice for 20 years since you've lived here, and probably longer. And what was the hardest thing about making this film? You can both speak to that, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the things that, by working on the film within Venice, we never set out to make a story about our backyard, but it just sort of, once we knew we wanted to look at the housing crisis and growing income inequality, we started trying to figure out a zip code that made sense. And the more we started thinking about it, Venice was so representative because it had historically been a more diverse community, but partly because of redlining and other things, it had historic, Oakwood has always been such an incredibly rich history, but it's also had a rich artistic history and a haven for artists. But it was sobering seeing the changes happening as fast as they were, even from when we started filming to when we finished filming. And I think this notion of art and artists and community, it's sort of this broader issue of, what is the value of diverse communities that we have to all start asking ourselves? Also, how do we take care or take better care of the most marginalized in our community? And probably one of the hardest things about making this film is that even in a supposedly progressive community like Venice, the amount of division and vitriol over common sense housing solutions was actually heartbreaking. And it was the first day when we filmed the town hall, that was our second day of filming. We had no idea how divided the community was. I'm a softie, but I cried at the end of that day because I just didn't realize how deep divisions went, even in a place like Venice. So if Venice can't get it right, what hope is there for other communities? So that was both one of the things we were investigating that was really at the core was art and artists and communities and values of diverse communities, but also the opposition to more compassionate communities. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was a long struggle.
And I think the other thing that's worth saying, and sort of speaking on behalf of the whole crew, and I'm sure you know this and your teams know this very well, Dr. King, that we preparing yourself for the day-to-day of going out to film on the street, and when Colin went out with teams and the day working with you, and then also just embedding on the street and getting to know those homeless people's stories, the unhoused stories, it was so intense. And the first day that we filmed with Nicole and Deshawn, it was their 65th, I think, consecutive day on the street with 2 babies in their tent. And then we go home at night, pack up our camera gear, everyone goes home, the whole crew goes home, and you get into your bed, and it felt all wrong, right? Yeah. And it's just around the corner. And blocks away. And then the other part that's so hard about it is you're watching the footage, like Davide watching the footage every day. I mean, you two are heroes for us, by the way. Like, we've watched so much footage, all of the interviews, all the walk around with you, like. So it is, there's the every time you're making a film, when you're in the edit room and you spend a long time with your people. But this one was, I think, I was worried about Colin for a while. I was like, this is taxing, like this stuff you just don't, and a lot of the films we've made, we always say this, the stuff you can't unknow, right?
Well,
so,
one thing about living in Venice is that by living here, you take responsibility for your community. You take care of your friends, you take care of your neighbors. That's what this community is about. And one of the problems with some of these big boxes is that some of those folks don't understand that basic principle of community. And I think that this film is a good example of why families fight, why they learn to live together with all their differences. And Venice is a family.
Yeah.
We have disagreements, but by having those, by being willing to express our differences, we can change things. and
But I
work
think
things
we're
out.
talking about two different sets of people.
Yes.
I agree with you.
Absolutely.
Because I heard it articulated very well in the film from a developer about understanding the situation, articulated it perfectly about the cause and the effect of development and
Yes.
homelessness.
Yeah.
Yet that person was a contributor to the homelessness and the effect that he was articulating and all the time causing it. And I've had that discussion with some of our people downtown to say, while we're talking about housing and the unhoused and how the city, and our Garcetti was the mayor at the time, how the city wants to do all this helpfulness for the unhoused and for other people in the community that are suffering from other socioeconomic and health issues. But all the time you're speaking, the wrecking ball is continuing. So how do you have two trains on the same track coming at each other, and one with more force and more support, so that you know that the destruction of the train that's on the other side with the people in it is the one that's gonna get run off the track. So I hear what you're saying. It's the people at the grassroots level that are the friendships, the bartering services to say, I got this, do you need that? That's happening on the level which has always happened in Venice, and I can speak about that specifically about the Oakwood community, but I can see that there is another level, that level of people in the community that see it but are not a part of it.
I agree with you. I think that's the thing we really need to focus on, because ultimately those families, those folks need to pay attention, and they will. Thanks to this film, and thanks to all of you folks and everybody who lives here who understands these things. So let's give the filmmakers and the thank you all so much for coming out and tell people about the film again. And take a look at Raise the Roof. And thank you. It's a pleasure to meet you, Doctor.
Well, it was an honor to be part of a really well scored, well edited, really beautiful film that was incredibly powerful. And let's wish it some luck and momentum that it doesn't forget about us, whatever. You know what? It's gonna do it, it's not gonna do it. This movie has life to it.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of power behind it, and it's really an honor to be part of it, so thank you.
Absolutely, it's easy access to drive people in that direction.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for.
And thank you, Juri and Venice Institute of Contemporary Art, for hosting us tonight.